What is up, guys? My name is Quincy Carrier, and welcome to QnA, the show where I take your questions from YouTube and Twitter and answer them here in video format on this show. And one of the main things I got a ton of questions about this week is about the Tony Grossi situation. So, we're going to just kind of jump into that right away with the question from Mike Keeley, who says, should we throw Tony Grossi at the moon or at the sun? All right, so let's talk about the Tony Grossi situation. And what that situation is that during a ad break, Tony Grossi was quoted and caught on video and camera, and audio, calling Baker Mayfield a bleeping bleep. Now, you can figure out what those two bleeps are with one Google search, so go ahead and do that. But he called him what is a derogatory term towards little people. Now, this is a double-sided sword for Tony Grossi. One, he used the word he knows he's not supposed to use because he's a professional journalist. He knows what words are acceptable in print and which words aren't. So he knew that he was using a bad word. That's why he wanted to make sure he was off the air. So that part is just due. The other part of this double-sided sword for Tony Grossi is, quite frankly, it confirmed what everybody knew about Tony Grossi, but it just gave everybody the evidence they needed to be double sure. And that is that Tony Grossi has never been interested in covering Baker Mayfield in a fair way, not because of who Baker Mayfield is, not because of what Baker Mayfield has or hasn't accomplished. It's because Baker Mayfield is not his ideal height of quarterback. Now, for those of you who aren't ESPN 850 longtime listeners or people who even care about what the local radio market does, let me explain to you the history of Tony Grossi when it comes to quarterback preferences. Since I've been listening to 850 and since Tony Grossi has been on there after he got fired from the Plain Dealer, he has always had the preference towards the bigger quarterback. This was prevalent in the Johnny Manziel thing. It was prevalent during the Colt McCoy era. Whenever the Browns have had a 6'1" or 6' quarterback, Tony Grossi has always been complaining about the height. He's always worried about the height. It's his biggest thing. He's always talking about the freaking height. And, when Baker Mayfield came up in the 2018 draft, it was his biggest worry. And then he compared him to Johnny Manziel and, just went on to say a bunch of stupid stuff that made him put his foot in his mouth during Mayfield's rookie year. Now, that information being what it is, the way that Grossi has covered Baker Mayfield throughout the last 2 years really doesn't make this comment that he made very surprising to me. It's more of a confirmation that this guy is unfit to do the job that he is paid to do, which is supposedly cover the team objectively as a journalist. Now, if he were just another media personality, whatever. He can have his opinion. He's not in the pre and post game huddles. It doesn't really matter. If he's just a media personality. I'm a media personality. I don't matter to the fabric of the team. But the fact of the matter is he's official beat reporter. He is a reporter. He is a journalist. His word is supposed to be respected, and his word is supposed to be objective and fair. Now, that's kind of a myth in today's day and age, but still, that's the expectation of the job, and comments like he made towards Baker Mayfield about his height just shows that he never was going to give Baker Mayfield a shot for the dumbest reason of all time. Not because Baker Mayfield hasn't showed potential, which he has, or not because he disagrees with who Baker Mayfield is, because he's gotten behind more loathsome personalities that were the right height. It's because Baker Mayfield's not 6'2". He's 6'1". He's not 6'2" like Joe Burrow. So Tony Grossi was never going to get behind him. And, I can sit here and name call him or, make fun of that all I want. All I will say is that now everybody has zero excuse for knowing what Tony Grossi is and who he is. This is the person who, when Baker Mayfield came at him, ran to the radio station and claim victim and had all the people on his radio station, play that victim card. And he said he didn't know why there's this hostility towards him with Baker Mayfield, when he knew damn well he's been antagonizing Baker Mayfield this whole time. So what I want everybody to take away from this is not the whole cancel Tony Grossi thing, because quite frankly, he's going to pop up on the radio networks because he's still a popular enough personality where people are going to give him a shot. And this is just what they do. When one of their own messes up, they're going to prop them up and bring them back up and tell us that we're wrong for being upset about it in the first place. This is what they're going to do. So the next time you see Tony Grossi pop up, remember, he's a fraud. He's not somebody who actually does his job objectively. He's not somebody who does his job well. He's past his prime, and he's not to be respected as an actual journalist anymore. And honestly, when he puts out his little takes, don't even respond to them because they're just not relevant. He's not covering the team from an objective basis. He's covering it from a biased one. So take it as seriously as you would take a exclusive report from Tony Rizzo seriously if you're from this area. So that's kind of my thoughts on the Tony Grossi thing. Not surprised at all, but confirms everything that we've been saying. But when we say it, we get told that we're crazy and we're hating on them, but we're actually just trying to tell people the truth. But thank you for the question. And it's not just Mike that asked it. There was a bunch of people that asked the question, so that's why I made sure I did a whole thing about it. So that's my answer to the whole Tony Grossi saga. This question is from Giants Nation, who says, "What's up, Quincy? How you doing, bro? My question is, do you think down the line more high school kids and college kids will go to the XFL?" Now, this is in reference, I believe, to Kenny Robinson Jr., who is number 23 on the St. Louis Battle Hawks. He's a safety. He was at West Virginia for 2 years, had a tutor help him that cost him his eligibility. He went to transfer, but they kind of played with his eligibility a little bit. And then he decided, instead of waiting out the year and having to add another year until he's draft eligible, he was going to just play this spring in the XFL and be draft eligible this year in 2020. He was projected to be a first-round pick earlier in his career, but the academic things and having to jump to the XFL may affect it. I think it's going to be very important that he stays healthy and plays well, because if this guy does get drafted in the first round from the XFL, it's going to be a huge calling card for a lot of people to make that jump who are in that similar situation. Now, for people to come straight out of high school or with like more than 1 year of eligibility left, that's going to take a few years. That's going to take the XFL to get a TV deal. That's going to give people that added level of security that this is going to be something that's going to last for 3-4 years at the very least, so that they're not stuck with like a year of eligibility remaining technically, but nowhere to play. So for those guys, I think it's going to be a little while. The XFL is probably going to have to procure a long-term deal. But for other guys who have 1 year of eligibility, don't want to sit through the transfer portal and want to make some money, it's a viable option. It's a real option. You're playing on national TV. There are people like PJ Walker who are becoming, big names relative to what they were before this. I think it's a better option than, transferring out and playing somewhere that's not one of the top 8 schools in the country, that are going to get that press and are going to get that media coverage. But if you're somebody like Kelly Bryant, whose option was to transfer from Clemson to like Mizzou, I think he would have been better off trying to take his talents to the XFL and seeing if he can ball a little bit in the professional league. Now, again, it's not going to be a guarantee. The XFL is not a low level of play. It is a very high level of play, higher than the SEC, higher than the CFL. So you're going to have to be able to ball for real if you're going to want to make it in that league. So it's a bigger gamble. It's kind of like when they talk about high school kids playing in the G League. But, it's an option out there and it's viable. And, they're paying, and who knows? They might even be able to add more money once they get a TV deal and more money pumped into the league so they can last longer. So it's an interesting thing to watch, most definitely. The next question comes from Chad W., who says, "I'd like to hear your thoughts on Kevin Stefanski having Alex Van Pelt handling the play calling during the preseason, and your thoughts on Greg Robinson and how that situation could affect the offensive line." First thing with Greg Robinson, really wasn't going to affect the offensive line because I don't think he was going to be on next year's offensive line. So, best of luck of him and all his legal troubles. Hopefully he figures out a way to get that sorted out. But the first part of your question was about Alex Van Pelt handling the offense. I think that's what we should have expected from Stefanski. I don't think he was brought here because he's an offensive genius. I think they brought him here because they feel like he's a leader to be the CEO of the Cleveland Browns. And if that guy is trusting Alex Van Pelt to be the offensive coordinator, then let's hope that he allows Van Pelt to do his job and that they can work on the same page, because we saw what happens when that doesn't, with Freddie Kitchens and Todd Monken. But thank you for the question, chat. Next question comes from Bailey Cundiff, who says, Quincy, you're definitely my favorite Cleveland YouTuber, so I was just wondering how come you don't cover the Cavs or the Indians as well? Just don't like the sports, or strictly a Browns guy? No, I cheer for the Cavs and the Indians. The reason I don't cover other sports, there's multiple reasons. One, on YouTube, you kind of have to stick to a niche. That's just how the algorithm works. So football is kind of my niche that I desire to stick to. Also, you know, I want, and I'm relatively new to doing this kind of thing, like, sure, I went to college for telecommunications, but doing like a radio or podcast or whatever you consider this kind of a deal to be is relatively new to me, and I want to make sure that I can make sure my bread and butter is well seasoned, and very good at the end of the day. And what my bread and butter is talking football, is talking Browns, is talking, AFC North related stuff. That's my bread and butter subject. So I want to make sure that I am as well seasoned in that as I can be. And if I cover the other sports, then I'm starting to spread myself out thinner. I'm trying to fit all these baseball games in and reactions, and I'm not giving myself time to focus on doing this job well. Instead, I'm just kind of, repeating recaps and doing that. I want to make sure I can bring, not just the reactions to things, but also very insightful and thoughtful takes about this specific sport or this specific team. And in order to do that, I feel like focusing on football can do that the best for now. Now, as the future goes on, we'll see. But as of right now, I like to keep it football on this channel because, I want to focus on that and make sure I give the best, most informed takes that you can find. And I want to make sure I can put the proper amount of work in and that I'm not spreading myself too thin. But I appreciate you asking. But that's all the questions for this week's show. Let me know what your thoughts are on the Tony Grossi situation. Do you think he should continue to be a beat reporter for the Cleveland Browns? Do you think he has a place in this region's radio network? Or do you think, we should just kind of let it go and let him continue to do the things that Tony Grossi has done? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. But thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, ding that notification bell so you can be notified when I upload. But thank you guys for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.